Here are 8 tips for teaching blind and visually impaired students. If you prefer this in print-only form, you can find it in the link below. Tip number 1, inclusion, IEPs, and the blind. Even if you're teaching self-contained special education like I have, you need to have maximum inclusion time possible for blind and visually impaired students. It's crucial. Your students should be at the very least eating lunch and having recess with same grade peers unless there is a concurrent severe behavior issue that would make this unsafe and therefore not the student's least restrictive environment. All of these details should be set in stone in the IEP. The National Federation of the Blind believes that 504 plans are not appropriate for blind students. The level of details needed to be addressed goes into more depth than a 504 plan does. Learn more about settings in LRE in the blog post. Tip number 2, remember HIPAA. Just because a student is blind or visually impaired doesn't mean you are allowed to share that information with the class. That's still information protected by HIPAA. For example, a hospital is not allowed to put a sign outside a patient's room alerting others to the patient's blindness. It's also not okay to tell a class a student has autism even if they are displaying a disruptive behavior. The same is true for a student who is blind. I recommend talking to your administration and parents on how to address this. Other students will notice and be curious. Develop a plan that will protect you legally. Make sure your paraprofessionals and all other staff working with the student are aware of HIPAA as well. I went to a high school with a girl who is blind, and I'm still Facebook friends with her today. No staff member needed to disclose her situation to us students. It was none of our business, and we were able to tell anyway. Tip number 3, explore your room without sight. Take some time to explore your room and school. When you have a moment, sit with your eyes closed, even while students are in the room. Ideally, coordinate this with a paraprofessional so an adult still has eyes open in the room. What do you hear? You might hear the lawnmower outside or the hum of an air conditioner. You might hear the din of the cafeteria, shrieks of fun from the playground, or bouncing balls in the gym. That background noise fades for sighted people more than it does for blind students. If there's a way to minimize these distractions, and there won't always be a good solution for this, try to do so. What do you smell? Real talk. If you're in a self-contained classroom, you might have bathroom smells from a connected restroom or from a changing area. Work to minimize these scents. They will be more apparent to students who can't see. Closed doors and diaper genies can help a lot with this. If you're using a diffuser, you may want to reconsider this choice. Many schools don't allow them, and it can be irritating to allergies for some kids. If you're still facing funky smells, consider an odor absorber like these charcoal bags instead. You can find them in the blog post I linked to in the description below. Just make sure they're out of reach from students. What do you feel? Does your room have a variety of textures to explore? Including tactile experiences will help all of your students. Consider having areas that are plush and cozy as a relaxing calm down spot. You might want a sensory wall or station for your students. Think about how classroom objects feel in your hand. Explore them with your eyes closed. A lot of plastic objects just feel like plastic without the visual cues that go with them. The vision teachers I collaborated with used these feel and press sheets with lots of textures. They were easy to use and cut to modify and adapt materials. We placed them on items around the room for mobility markers and used them to produce meaningful work. Also, use your sense of touch to navigate your school. Before or after school, walk around with your eyes closed. It's disorienting. You should have access to a mobility teacher as part of the vision team. Tip number 4. The vision teachers and mobility teachers I have worked with are absolute rock stars. They have specialized training in visual impairment and blindness. They will help you learn the tools like the Brailler or a Braille slate and stylus. These rockstar teachers teach you how to implement skills like navigation and mealtimes in the cafeteria. Make sure your paraprofessionals get training with them too. It's valuable, critical information. Tip 5. Use names. Encourage everyone that comes in and out of your classroom to introduce themselves. I've worked at a campus that did the Great Expectations program, and it was already an expected practice school-wide. I really liked having my students get up and to greet the door and announce the visitor. And yes, include your blind student as having this class job too. It might take them a little bit longer to find the door, but they deserve to have the opportunity too. There will be a way to modify it so no matter the ability level of the student, they can participate. My kids loved answering the door, so much that it needed to become a classroom job for the week so that they wouldn't fight over turns to get the door. Kids are of course individual in what makes them tick, but in general, kids with vision loss are going to be more motivated by multi-sensory items. Incorporating smell, texture, and sound as much as possible is great fun. Books on CD are also a great center idea that all your students will love. Here are a few more ideas to get you started. Talking parrot toys are a big hit. Students can talk to the parrot and the parrot talks back. They can feel the parrot's body and feel the wings move. It's awesome and it's a hit for all kids. Do only use this toy supervised. Kids will sometimes explore inappropriate language with this reinforcer, and they may not even know that the words that they used were bad. You'll want to be there to stop that quickly if it happens so you don't have a classroom of parrots saying inappropriate words. Thankfully, it only happened once in my classroom and it did not remain a problem. Thank goodness it didn't happen during an observation. If this happens, remove it immediately if it becomes an issue. My kids were able to handle earning it back and everything was fine. Like any reinforcer, kids need to be taught how to use it appropriately. Kinetic sand is reinforcing to me, not just my students. If you haven't tried it, you're in for a treat. It's fun and relaxing to play with between your hands. The color won't matter much, but consider the fun colors for your other students. I kept mine in a deep plastic bin. The kids did great with it and did not make a mess. Music is simple and effective. Let kids choose music for a reinforcer. I like to give students a set option of songs. If you leave it open-ended, they might request a song that's not appropriate for school, and then you're in a jam. Parent communication is particularly effective here, as they will often know what songs the kids like. I've had good success with the Beatles, short pieces from Carnival of the Animals, and some songs from They Might Be Giants like Seven. Keep your kids' tastes in mind. Picking music they do not like can be the opposite of reinforcing. Listening to music you don't enjoy tends to be unpleasant. Tip number 7, tactile choices. For the reinforcers, create tactile choices for your student to choose from, just like you would create visuals for other students. For the parrot, you could use a feather, and for the kinetic sand, a piece of sandpaper would be useful. Glue your icons to something substantial to make them easy to find. I like using Unifix cubes because I usually have a ton of them. If the student you are working with also has difficulties with hand grasp, get your OT involved on how to make your icons easy to use. This idea could also be used to make a core board for a student who needs communication assistance. Teach them different objects for needs like toilet, food, water, sick, and emotion words so the student can communicate their needs and feelings to you. This can help prevent behavior problems. All kids need a voice, and a tactile core board just might unlock a student's voice. Consider making tactile choices based around your school's lunch menu. Have a tactile schedule that allows the student to feel what is coming next. This will help give your students security about what is happening throughout the day. Tip number 8. Include material time in the IEP. If at all possible, include time in the IEP for a teacher to create materials for the student. This task likely will go to the vision teachers. Including this time will be very helpful for you. It takes a lot of time to gather and adapt materials for visually impaired students. Providing accessible materials is something we absolutely must do by law. Find a way to get that time set aside by the district. If you don't, you'll be spending even more time on your off hours preparing. You probably will still need to do quite a bit of prep and off time anyway, but it's important we try to protect our own mental health by being realistic in our legal documents about the amount of time prep work takes. Want more information? Don't be scared of teaching blind and visually impaired students. It's one of the most rewarding things I've done in my career. There are so many other things I could share about teaching blind students. If this is a topic of interest to you, be sure to let me know below and subscribe using the bell icon. Thanks. I'm Kirsten Euchre, and I founded OwlQuest to help overwhelmed special education teachers by providing efficient tools and training so that they achieve life-changing student outcomes while allowing teachers to spend more time with their families.